Welcome back to the Blindsiders. I am Ben. I'm joined here today by Dylan. Brian is going to be taking this week off, but we are here to talk about the premiere of Survivor 42. We didn't do a cast preview this season. We just put out our winner picks on Twitter. For those who didn't see it, Brian picked first. Unfortunately, he picked the technically second boot, but first person voted out of the game in this premiere in Zach. I picked Chanel, and then Dylan picked Roxroy as our winner picks for the season. Now we're here to go through this first episode. It's been a few months here since we got to talk about Survivor, Dylan.
Yeah, a lot's been going on. World peace is really coming to fruition. Brian is, he's back on his Survivor game. He had a very unfortunate pick. It's totally unrelated to why he decided to just skip the pod today, which is great. But yeah, I'm happy to be back. Talk to my pal. I got a new setting. I got rid of that fridge, but you can't see it anyway. So this is great. I'm really excited for 42. I thought it was a good show. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think that we'll get into it. I think that this episode was above average compared to like modern Survivor standards. I think there was a lot of good stuff in there. I thought the pacing of this premiere was a lot better than the pacing of last season's premiere, which I thought was pretty rushed and kind of crammed. We didn't really get to know too many people. I feel like we had a lot of focus on the losing tribe for obvious reasons, but otherwise, I thought we got a pretty even understanding of most of the cast.
Yeah, we talked about it on the side. I was very, very hopeful that they were going to correct what they could from last season. Pacing, for sure. It's a great point. I thought the first episode of 41, very, very long. A lot slammed in there. And this one, even though we had a lot of the same stuff, agree. The pacing was great. Some of it maybe through no credit to production. Had to basically probably get around not shooting just an extra 20 minutes of tribal. So that was nice that we got some social life. But yeah, I'm gonna build it up now. I was high on this episode. I like what I saw.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was definitely a few things that we'll get to. I still am not super high on a lot of returning twists from 41, but right off the bat here, we're introduced to the cast. They do their opening intro things on the mat. We get Zach trying to do a little quip by being like, we're about to find out how to win this game, and Jeff, kind of no-selling it, and then headed right into the challenge.
Once again, pacing, very good. I can't even remember where we started. We were on the boat last year, right? And they all with the oars. I think we spent probably about like 15 minutes of airtime of them like on the boat trying to find the oars last time, and then this one we were right into it, just right into it. Man, Zach, what a bummer. He was a big Reddit guy too, and he's just no one on Reddit's ever gonna want to go on Survivor again after this. But
yeah, no, we talked a lot of last season about how a lot of the modern show they've really leaned into like propping up Survivor superfans in ways that they hadn't before the last like 5 to 10 seasons, and like really kind of saying, oh, liking Survivor a lot is like a personality trait that we want to showcase, because it's like kind of it's kind of masturbatory for the show to be like, oh, look how great the show is and how dedicated the fans are and how much they want to play.
Especially after last season too, because I think that we probably had half the cast last season say that they were super fans, and it's become, and it's played into what I hate the most, which is the super meta gameplay that's being talked about out loud. And it goes beyond like live tribal, which is people saying, oh yeah, I remember this from season such and such. I can do this puzzle. And was it Erica last season that did that puzzle super quick? And is that what I'm thinking of? Or maybe I've binged so much Survivor between what we lost last time and now I can't really remember. But Yeah, because JD last year, biggest super fan there was. Not a great pick by me. And it seems that trend is continuing. But from what we saw right away in this, I like this cast. They seem very diverse. They seem, like a healthy balance of crazy and normal. I think with the cast last season might have been too normal. I think that was part of our problem. I think one of the biggest dilemmas we had last season was we had Liana falling around Xander, and that was like the big to do of Xander fake pushing Liana. That was like the drama of last season. Everything else was like very like quiet and meta, and I don't know. It was nice, and like you said, it was just nice to get right into it too. And I actually really liked how this challenge played out with the twist that occurred during it.
Yeah, and talking about the meta stuff as well, in this challenge, Daniel is going to dislocate his shoulder and call it pulling a Stephanie LaGrassa, which is definitely one of those instances of like taking something standard and just being like, oh, we're just going to like act like this is a Survivor thing. Like dislocating your shoulder is a Survivor event, and you have to refer to it with the Survivor reference.
Although some people, I have Daniel in my family pool, and I thought I saw my life flash before my eyes there. You'd ask some people on Reddit, they think that Daniel's the second coming of Survivor Jesus for snapping that thing back into place. So I don't know, maybe he is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's gone through a lot in his life. As of a lot of this cast, I mean, talking about like the cast being kind of greater, like larger than life, more so than the 41 cast. It's like there's a lot of I know Brian. I think Brian was the one who said that it was like sob stories, but there's a lot of like people who have these very profound things that they've gone through in their life. And Daniel, as we'll find out, had gone through childhood leukemia, and so I would assume that popping your shoulder back in is probably pretty minor compared to having gone through that. So
As we will see in the rest of the episode too, and all I can really compare it to is the older seasons, obviously, because I've done nothing but breathe them for the past year. It was really a strategy to not conceal your past until it was coming. I think we got everyone's deathbed confessions in this episode. There were some people that just laid it out on the line.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we'll obviously get to the eventual like technical first boot of the season in Jackson telling his story as well. But yeah, I guess we'll get into this challenge here. As you mentioned, this challenge came with a twist, where there was two phases of collecting ores from various places the tribe couldn't see. The first group that went just collected the ores as usual. The second group that went, which was Hai, Drea, and Lindsay, were met with a notice to tell them to stop the challenge and make a decision between the three of them whether they're going to take free advantages and just tell a lie that's very easy to tell, or to not take free advantages for some reason.
Be instantly like everybody that was there, particularly Hai. Especially to the extent that they went through to try to cover it up. I thought it was genius to just throw the mud, just get everything on you. I thought that was a great little thing to throw in there too. The seemingly fake blood for some reason with the just looking like he just came from a murder scene. I loved it, and I really grew. I grew on Andrea a lot. I grew on Hai. Who I think are now two. You want to talk about meta? I think two very, very strong players in this season, potentially. A great start to the show again because we're immediately in a healthy way seeing a twist and seeing a decent way to play it out. Some sloppy gameplay down the road in this episode, but I loved it. I was right away. I think I texted you guys. I said I'm already liking this season more. It feels totally different. It doesn't feel as bogged down, and with this twist and the way it worked out, it's gravy.
Yeah, I think part of it might just be that because some of these twists are being recycled, there is less airtime spent explaining them to the audience, because presumably the audience has seen last season and you can kind of just yada yada over the explanation. Like the explanation for like a shot in the dark later is similar to that, where like it was very short compared to the explanation that was given last season. And yeah, I really like. I thought the fake blood was a little bit extra, but the concept of this twist, and then especially the way that the advantages actually work, I actually liked. I think it's pretty fairly balanced. It's not really something that's going to be great game breaking. It creates some interesting strategic dilemmas, and it's also a twist that's being introduced early, but it's not really going to play out until down the line. So it has kind of like it's basically setting up like a long-term storyline right off of the bat, and it's going to be as we evaluate these players going forward, and they'll talk about it. They have to decide whether or not it's in their best interest to like to maybe make some non-standard moves or like moves that they wouldn't otherwise think about making to try to get the other two out so that they get a free idol basically. Like it's a very interesting kind of like side quest for them of like it is potentially making moves that could be bad for my game in a vacuum worth it because it could create a situation where I have an advantage that's more powerful. And so yeah, the way it works is that the 3 tokens, they each get them. They're only going to be powerful when the 3 of them or 2 of them or 1 of them, which however many are left active in the game, are combined into 1. And if there's 3 of them left in the game, it's an extra vote. If there's 2, it's a steal a vote, which is an upgrade. And then if there's only 1 left in the game, then it's just a regular idol. Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
I'm so glad you just explained that because I misremembered what it was.
Yeah.
I was about to ask a stupid question, so thank you for explaining that. Yeah, and like you said, we don't need 45 minutes to explain it and having the players talk about it. So right away we're in it. We realize what the dilemma is, and they settle it. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they get back into the challenge, and after the standard physical aspect of the challenge doesn't actually matter. We get to the final stage of the challenge, and Roxroy really clutches it up for his tribe here and wins them the ability to not have to do an additional challenge at their camp, basically.
So to backtrack real quick, obviously shout out Roxroy because for those of you that aren't following us on the Twitter, Roxroy is my pick, and if he doesn't win, I'm going to eat a ghost pepper on air in the episode following his departure. So, yeah, shout out Roxroy. Can we to back up to the physical part though? Can we talk about Jonathan? Jonathan is a bat out of hell. He's a Hercules in live action. He basically probably could have just swam out there, towing the boat, and swam back, and still beat the other 2 tribes. That was very, very impressive. May even be his downfall faster than it should be, but impressive player, probably the most physically dominant by far. Shout out Jonathan.
Yeah, it's possibly like one of the more physically dominant players that we've seen in a long time, and like at least a few seasons. I'm trying to think of.
He's tall too. He's very tall.
Mm-hmm.
Or everyone else is very short. It might be both, but yeah, he's up there.
Yeah, he's just like you can just feel his presence is just like larger than everybody else's. I know I saw like a meme where it was like the show is the full cast, and it's like the Survivor 42 cast at 100% power, and then it was just a picture of Jonathan. It was the Survivor 42 cast at 99% power.
Yep.
But yeah, obviously, like in both challenges in this episode, Jonathan basically hard carries the physical aspect and gives his tribe a massive lead that they blow in this challenge, but that they make good on in the immunity. But yeah, it was good for the was it Ika tribe? I'm so bad with the tribe names these days because
Ika is the tribe that has Roxroy.
Yep.
Vati is the tribe that has like Lydia and Mike and Chanel. And then we have Taku, which has Jonathan, Marianne, Omar, etc.
Mm-hmm. I used to be so good with the tribe names, and then there was like 5 to 10 seasons in a row where because the seasons were themed, they never actually said the tribe names, so I just have gotten bad at paying attention to them and remembering them because of that. but yeah, good for them to get a bit of a W here, particularly given that they're not going to have a W later in the episode. And they get to go back and not do what is it, sweat or something? Sweat or
Yes.
what's the other S word?
Uh,
Smart? I don't know.
let's go with that. Yeah.
Something triangles.
Yes. Yes. Triangles. Sweat or
Yeah.
triangle.
Uh, so yeah, this is another twist that's kind of been it's basically the same twist that they did last season, but it's kind of rebalanced because both tribes last season were like, oh yeah, obviously just do the sweat one. That's way easier. We could just knock that out. It's pretty straightforward. And this one, they lowered the number of players that could do the sweat challenge from 2 to 1, which also is like heavily detrimental to that one person from a social perspective. But they also increased the number of guesses that you get on the puzzle from 1 to 2. So maybe a little bit of an overcorrection because it seemed like both tribes in this season immediately chose the puzzle. So there's probably a middle ground there, but yeah.
I think it made for much more interesting TV to watch to see them work that out rather than last time when we had Voce and like Xander walking back and forth for once again. I feel like the episode the premiere last season was like 4 hours long. It felt it.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed this a lot more. I enjoyed seeing them talk through it. I enjoyed Jonathan saying that there was like 13 triangles when there was very clearly not. It made for a very interesting TV. Crazy that they both got there. Yeah, good thing they had the two guesses. I think probably made it a little more enticing because even then, yeah, the social game stinks, but you have somebody like Taku. I just send Jonathan out on his way. Be like, all right, we'll see you in 4 hours, buddy. Like that, and he'd probably do it too. So I enjoyed it. I'm glad they went this route, and it was cool to see people walk through it because it's not even necessarily like a true puzzle like they'll do in the challenges. It was more of like literally just concentration. Like I don't know how to describe it, but it was cool. It was cool to see them all work it out and some good teamwork there.
Yeah, it was almost like a brain teaser because it's like as we saw with most of the players who were trying to do the puzzle, most of them like didn't really conceptualize what they were supposed to do, and they kind of missed the point that there are like triangles that like aren't immediately apparent when you're not really like paying attention for them, just because of the way your mind will like work. People aren't really thinking about like, oh, there can be a triangle that has like another line through it, and people are just looking for the normal triangles that don't have stuff in the middle. And yeah, so we saw that from the was it Haku? Is that what it is? Haku?
Taku, yep, Taku.
Yeah, from the Taku tribe. They pretty quickly realized that only half of their team should really have to work on this puzzle because half of them didn't really understand how it worked. So they left the 3 like smarter people who understood what was going on to work on the puzzle, and they sent the other 3 to go start working on camp, which I thought was a smart division of labor, even though they didn't really get very far with the machete. But yeah, the one thing I do want to call out here is we get kind of a confessional or two from Mike on the other tribe, who immediately realizes that with Daniel having a busted shoulder, he is going to be 100% the person they go to do the sweat challenge, which is going to be very socially detrimental to him. And if he fails it, that's going to look really bad because it puts all the pressure on him. So he immediately just starts making very good objective arguments for why they should do the puzzle instead, which I thought was very good for him. Like very, it shows that he's not really just like a physical player, and he is kind of here to really play and like think strategically and act on his feet.
Yeah, it helps him too. It seems like he'll do smart strategy wise too. It helps him too that he is pretty physical. But he's one of like the 4 or 5 characters in this episode that really had their like quarters of the episode to shine. Like I feel like
Yep.
the beginning we had more high, and I guess Dre really came back after it. Then we obviously we had Mike, and then we clearly moved on to Jackson, and then we had Dre again, and everybody in that tribe. Like back to the pacing, I guess I really did like how they broke it up, because I actually feel like that we really got to know the players too, and actually being able to get some airtime with them rather than having, not to beat a dead horse, and rather than having to hear people explain twists again. It just made for a much better game. And to your point, yeah, like Mike, he's here to play. I like reading through his bio. I didn't think he was going to be a super strong strategy player going into this, but those don't judge a book by its cover too. And it also goes back to the quote unquote super fans. Everyone's a fan of Survivor that's playing now. We're in season 42. So seeing someone use their head like that and not have it be like a meta situation was nice.
Yeah, and especially like the way he did it was very subtle. Where instead of arguing like I don't want to do this, right? It wasn't like oh I know I'm gonna have to do this, and so I'm gonna tell them I don't want to do this. It was like hey we should win as a team, lose as a team. We should do something all together, or like this seems like it's something that we could just like do and knock out, and like everybody is responsible. So like it was like he talked about it in very general terms, so it wouldn't like put a target on himself, like he was trying to, basically skirt some kind of responsibility or anything like that, which I thought was very good. And luckily, both teams solved the puzzle correctly, because not having flint and machete and a pot, particularly a pot, and a machete, obviously for a shelter, is like I don't understand what Survivor really this whole Survivor is doing. Is like they're basically trying to kill them. Yeah, I don't know why.
Well, we didn't even really get to find out how detrimental it was to them last season, because it seems like it was just never really touched on. The most grueling season of Survivor. They're very low on rice. There's no food in the island, and then we never really like heard about it after that first day. Obviously, they were tired and they had like those breakdown moments, but we never like really saw it other than that like one and like the second to last episode. So yeah, there's a few things in here that they're touching on last season that they didn't before, and a few things that they're staying away from. And I do hope that the actual scarcity of food is something that will come into play, because obviously that's a huge element to this. Running on fumes like halfway through the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that like it seems like such a waste for them to put the cast through such a physical and mental ordeal and to not really have it be a major story point for the season. It's just like, well, why are you doing this then? What's the point?
Well, we'll get to obviously probably the biggest shocker of the whole episode, and letting things play out maybe when they shouldn't have, and etc., or maybe when they should have and they didn't. So yeah, maybe they learned in like that 2-week span after Fiji. I mean, I knew that something had to give. They had to see the reaction and people in watching it themselves last season realize, oh god, like we gotta edit and fix something here. Even probably watching it live too,
Yeah, it's hard because like they can't make any adjustments obviously to the way they filmed and produced the season in real time, because it's already basically in the can. But yeah, they can change kind of the way that they present the story at the very least. And I'm hopeful that if we do get like a more low-key winner this season, that they are not given the Erica treatment, and we actually are able to get like a full-fledged like front-to-back story of them. Because that's probably the biggest complaint that I have had of last season's kind of storytelling and production. Yeah.
Even with the praise that we're giving him of the pacing and airing out to a lot of people, there are some players in this season that I just completely forgot were there. I even forgot about until when I opened up the cast to get the tribe names, that I just completely forgot that there were players there. So I hope that changes. I hope we don't have a situation last year where we have someone in Final 5, Final 4 that had maybe a total of 5 minutes of confessional.
Yeah, no, I hope so as well. But we'll see. I do think the episode was more balanced than the start of last season, but we'll see. There were a couple like Lindsay, Mariah, I think were were kind of quiet. But even still,
Omar was another one I feel like we didn't spend much time with.
Yeah, he did get at least one confessional talking about his job, and I do think that Omar probably is going to get some more screen time in the future. So I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. Yeah. So I'm cautiously optimistic that they're not going to purple somebody to the extent that they did Heather. All right. I guess we're headed in to was it the shipwreck thing? The next thing they did, the shipwreck wheel, or do they do some? I guess we had some camp scenes in between, right?
We have some camp scenes. I don't think that shipwreck is until the morning after that.
Okay.
I could be wrong because I think the night.
Yeah, the night
like
is
that,
when they
night
get
is
some
when.
stories.
Yeah, so it might have been that day. Yeah, but yes, those are two are right there. So I guess we can, if you want, we can cover the island first. There's not much to talk about.
No. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It didn't really matter. I mean, they were told, "Oh, you can talk to each other before or like on your trek up there," but we didn't see any of them, or we didn't see any footage of them talking to each other. We got a montage from Marianne, which was nice, but we didn't really see any of Jenny, Drea, and Marianne interacting before they made their decision.
And you don't see anything after.
Nope.
It doesn't get brought up at all. So
it just hard cuts into the next scene. Yeah.
Because when you said the ship thing, I completely forgot. Yeah, like they just don't touch on it. So that's that.
Yeah. But we do see, I guess, something to point out. Drea and Marianne here are both going to end up with an extra vote. Marianne won't get hers until they go to tribal, I believe, or until she goes to tribal and survives tribal, I believe. But Drea is going to get her second advantage of the episode, which, as you said, puts her in a major power position here, and she's probably just objectively in the best position out of anybody right now, just because of that. So yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons about whether you want to be the person to step up and get on a boat and put yourself out there like that, but it seems like most of the time it's probably just correct.
I do think Drea had one slip up, but we can touch on it after the challenge.
Oh yeah, I mean no, Drea's far from a perfect player, but I think that she's definitely the standout player right now.
I would agree. I'd take her. I'd take high. Yes, and to kind of talk about the ship thing again too. It's a nice change. I feel so stupid to keep comparing the two seasons, but it's tough not to. After going 2 years for you guys, whatever it was, without Survivor, and then having these back to back, it was overly dramatic on the island last time. With people staring off into the sunset and figuring out what they're doing for something that is it's a big deal but not that huge of a deal this early on. So yeah, I'm glad, but it's a challenging like before too, so I am a little bummed it's back. So that's one thing, because it's a not hard, it's not that hard of a decision to make in the end. It's like everybody that wants to make the decision ends up usually getting rewarded. Maybe that'll change this season.
Yeah, there was nobody lost their vote from it last season, right? There was always a split.
There was always a split. Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, we never really saw a situation where people really got majorly punished for going to the island or for being greedy. Yet, at least, yeah. So I don't know. I agree. I don't think that the Prisoner's Dilemma Island is particularly interesting television. And I'm not a huge fan of just handing out extra votes willy-nilly, just because it as we talked about last season, complicates a lot of the kind of calculus you have to do as a viewer to understand what's going on. It's hard to keep track of who has these extra votes, especially with last season, the extra vote being passed around like candy. Yes, it can create some amount of drama, but it's kind of it's marginal that kind of happens, and the drama is probably going to happen regardless. So I don't know. We'll see. I didn't think it added too much, even with the drama that happened between for instance Shan and JD. But yeah. All right. I guess we could talk about some of the early tribe dynamics that we see, and then we can kind of get into Jackson. So I guess from Ika's perspective, we immediately see a split down the middle from an age perspective of Swathi, Tori, and Zach as the three youngest, who are, I believe, 20, 21, and 24. And the older players on the tribe and Romeo, Drea, and Roxroy kind of going off on their own and forming a little deal by the well. Definitely an interesting dynamic right off the bat that obviously doesn't end up mattering too much when they end up going to tribal council later, but definitely interesting to see an immediate 3-3 split at 5-6 like that.
Yeah, because I think that we have, and I like Romeo too. I think that you probably have the three of the smarter players on that side of this of this split here, so it made sense. I love my guy Roxroy making moves. It may not pay out in the end, but I love it. And the other three also the show immature players, they split right away. They split right away. There's
Well, I wouldn't say right away. There's definitely they definitely played sloppier, and because they played sloppier, they they turned on each other faster out of necessity. I think I would say with like Tori and Zach, who were like the two primary targets by the end of the episode, because of like somewhat bad decision that Tori made, and then like a decision that Zach makes to give her the heads up that people are talking about her. And then when it's that early in the game, there is kind of a level of like, well, if it's not me, I have to put the target on somebody, right? And the easiest person to put the target on is the person that you have ammo against. So it's like not conducive to a good starting point for an alliance when people are already playing with their backs against the wall.
One of our I feel like one of our season villains were set up here too from this tribe.
With Tori?
Yeah.
I agree. So. I agree. I've seen people say that they think that Tori is going to be out pre-merge. I heavily disagree. I think Tori is in this game for the long haul. I think she's going deep. I do not think she is winning 100%, but I think she is going deep, and it's going to be a major character.
Yep, I think she's, even if it's not the best of the best, she's playing a game that I had hoped Sarah last season was going to play, and obviously she was second boot. So I agree. Unfortunately, the other issue is that they showed her getting an idol in the trailer of that episode. So you knew she wasn't really in true trouble.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That was another issue there. But I agree. I think she's going to go far, and everybody loves a good villain. So hopefully we get one here.
Yeah, that's something I was going to touch on later, where it was obvious that Zach was going to be going because we had a scene that was teased where we saw Tori, and it's like, okay, well that hasn't happened yet, so obviously she doesn't get voted out here. Obviously it's Zach.
Because I was actually so surprised that that she didn't find an idol when she went out there.
Yep.
Because I thought for sure that like if they're going to show it, it's probably going to happen in this episode.
I agree. So yeah, no, I was also surprised. I figured that was being set up when she was going off looking for Taro. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what the advantage is to have some kind of a cut, like unless it's like a huge debate and it's not actually Tori, and it's just somebody that sounds just like Tori with Tori's face, and it's actually somebody else who found the rare advantage. Like it just doesn't make sense to me for them to tease somebody finding an idol, basically before the season even starts. When like it's not, especially when it's not something that's going to happen in the premiere, it just seems kind of dumb. But it kind of takes a lot of the wind out of the sail on that, and it's like, okay, well now we know. Until we see Tori find this idol, she's not being voted out.
I think I'd be even more shocked if it's not in the next episode, because then we're getting deep to at least the first merge. So yes.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like something that people kind of noticed in like early Survivor seasons, where before they kind of realized this, or production kind of figured this out, they would use like kind of B-roll in the like intro packages for the opening theme from like episodes that were way down the line, and so it was like, okay, well, I haven't seen that shot of them like diving into the water for this challenge yet that they've shown, and they show in the opening sequence. So like obviously they're not getting voted out. Like there's like obviously that's a little bit extreme, but that's something that professional TV production should be able to not do and not like spoil their own show. Kind of, I don't know. Well, anyways, I guess we can move on to Vati here. This is really the only like kind of major scene we get from Vati, where we get the scene, or we get the package, as we mentioned, of Daniel talking about his childhood leukemia. We also get kind of an overhead view of the social dynamics of that tribe, where that's with Ika, it was originally split up into two groups of three, where with Vati, it's seemingly split up into three pairs of Lydia and Hai, Mike and Jenny, and Chanel and Daniel as the three pairs. And it's going to be interesting, I guess, to see when this tribe eventually goes to a tribal council and has to, put pen to paper. Presumably, you would expect it to break down where just like two of the pairs team up against the third. That would make the most sense. So right now, that tribe seems like very, very wide open from what we can tell.
Agreed. I also think it's a very, very likable tribe too. I think I like pretty much everyone on that tribe. I think Jenny's clearly a very, very strong puzzler. Daniel's got the story. Mike's backed it up. Love Lydia. Lydia's very likable, especially now that I've dove into her like her Twitter, and
Yep.
she met Jeff out like very, very drunk, and she posted on Instagram like that's how she got on Survivor. So that was great. Her name on Twitter is Lydia Chlamydia. So it's she's great. I love her. So Chanel was one of my favorites to pick at the beginning of the season. I am a little bummed with her in this episode, but I think that tribe overall is very, very good. Obviously, I'm very high on High. So I do like that tribe, but you got a great point. Something's going to give there eventually. It's really going to be a matter of do the four younger people go after the two older people, or is it that easy, or which is usually how it goes, or we'll see. But yeah, I like that tribe a lot, and it does make it interesting that we didn't get an even split. That we have 2-2 and 2. So that's another very intriguing part of this season that I'm looking forward to watching.
Yeah, I did also want to mention that I like Lydia a lot as well. She's very she's like, we'll talk about Marianne next, but like with Marianne, she seems, for me at least, to be a little bit much. Whereas I think Lydia is just kind of like just the right amount of like like kind of quirky, but like kind of funny a little bit, kind of like self-aware of the quirkiness, but like in a way that's like not really like super over the top. Or she lists off all of the things about being outdoors that she's afraid of doing. It was a really good introduction to her as a character, I think.
She gave off like she's somebody that is on Survivor.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like it's not like a very dramatic or fake person. It's like somebody fun that So that reason alone. Also, if you hear it, oh man. So I moved to a new house, and my studio I'm setting up in the basement, but I have steam piped heating, and if you hear the popping right now, the pipe is literally right above my head.
It's the ghosts. Yeah.
And there's some water in the pipe, so when it hits the vapor, it just pops, and it literally sounds like there's like gunshots going off right above me. So apologies to Brian and the listeners if you're hearing that. I also have my big ass furnace like 20 feet, or like not even, like 20 inches behind me. So we'll work it out. I got some soundproofing to do, so apologies ahead of time. Not mute myself. Yes, love Lydia.
Yeah, 100%. Especially with, we talk about the meta aspect of like, oh, everybody on this season is like so excited to play Survivor and like just, feeling the sand and like looking at the trees is like, giving them all like this like ecstasy that they've wanted their whole life. And Lydia is just like, man, I'm not really feeling this whole like outdoors thing. It's not really my style. It's very it's kind of just very it's very fresh. Like we haven't gotten that in a while. I feel on Survivor. Somebody just being like, I don't know why am I here? What is this? Seems like a dumb thing to do.
My gosh.
You can't really hear. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Oh man, I hear it though. I just jumped. I'm scared.
Yeah.
Oh god. Okay. We're good. Keep it in it. Keep it in there, Brian, when you listen to this.
All right, let's move on. Yes, we got the Taku tribe, and I mentioned Marianne, who gets like a little bit of a package on Shipwheel Island, talking about how she's quirky and weird. But the primary person from this tribe that we really get to know, because he leaves very quick, is Jackson, who talks about how he had previously auditioned for Survivor when he was presenting as a woman, because he is a trans man, and he transitioned shortly after the first time that he applied. He talked about the struggle of dealing with parents who were a little bit bigoted and not really understanding, and like how that kind of had a fallout with his family, but then he reconnected after his mom got sick. And then like a very touching story that we get from him here, which I'm glad we got at least that from him before he has to leave. So
I was wondering what, because they got very, very heavy.
Yeah.
Like I was very, very surprised. So it really did, because you saw him get that deep, and it was probably the way that the editing was after too. Something felt very weird and off.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. And yeah, obviously, as you'll go on now, something gave.
Yeah, we get that sequence, which I think was on night 1, and then on day 2, after the Shipwheel Island excursion, they cut right into a scene of I believe it was Jackson and Lindsay, I think was the one helping him, where she's trying to care for him and talking about how he's been very dizzy for hours and hours, and like seemingly dehydrated, and not being able to stand up. And then we have Jeff coming in onto the boat. For the 1 second, I was like, oh, is this a twist? And then I was like, no, this feels more like a medical checkup based off of the scene we just got. And he pulls Jackson aside, and they have a discussion about some of the medical history that Jackson had concealed from the producers out of fear that he would get cut, basically.
Another very, very heavy thing. I feel like that was the tough part, is I feel like Jackson's like whole life was just thrown out there in a matter of like 2 minutes. It was a lot to digest that quickly. Also, for you in the simulcast, sorry, I had my children losing their mind upstairs, so I was talking to the babysitter and told her to get the hell on out of here. A lot. I also had no idea what lithium was, so I wasn't quite sure what was going on there. I wasn't fully following the conversation, because I was like, this is very, very strange. It's not something we had before. The whole situation stinks. Because I think that Jackson unfortunately looks bad, even though I really don't blame him all that much. You finally get on Survivor. You've been trying for a while, and you finally get there, and that happens. And then you have the reverse side of saying that he should have told them earlier and all that. And like, I don't know. I think he's unfortunately going to get vilified. I mean, there is a lot of praise for him, rightfully so. It's tough. I don't know. It's crazy that they let him go out there knowing this, Like Jeff was talking about like tests. What the hell was Jeff talking about with these tests? I had no idea what
Okay.
that was.
Okay. So,
Victims Jackson by far, because he finally got on the show and through. I mean, in the end, really no fault of his own. He has to leave because I mean, weaning yourself off of something like that, I imagine, is very, very, very hard. So it sucks. So I think it's crazy online. People are, it's vilified. He's vilified or he's a hero. It's one or the other. I mean, I think it's, I think it is somewhere in the middle there, but it just stinks because I think he would have been I think he was going to be a great player.
yeah, and I mean, this isn't the first time that something similar to this has happened in Survivor. This is the first time it's been this transparent. We had on Survivor Micronesia, Kathy Sleckman, somebody that it came out afterwards, and she told the story publicly that she basically went off of her antidepressants cold turkey before the season started for probably very similar reasons to why Jackson wanted to wean off of his before the season started. And she had a pretty noticeably terrible time on Survivor because of it, and ended up, not being able to deal with the consequences of going off of antidepressants cold turkey, and she ended up leaving the game and quitting, which is like totally reasonable. And I think that the Survivor production probably took that as a lesson to be very careful about this in the future, because she was very clearly not in a great state mentally and psychologically while she was going through that, and especially with something like lithium here. I can imagine that, from what I understand, he basically told production about this the day before filming. And at that point, it was essentially too late for production to do anything about it, other than okay, well, I mean, we'll have to let him try, and then figure out in a couple of days if that was a good idea or not. But I think it was just not smart to let him play at all. Like, they probably could have, if they didn't have an alternate, which it sounds like they didn't because of the short notice, then they probably should have just readjusted the season to work with 17 players. I don't know how that works, but they've done it before. In Fiji, there was a 20th player who quit basically before basically as the game was starting, she quit. And they ran that season with 19 players, and they just added a twist at the start to make it kind of work. So
did it show it happening while the camera was rolling
in Fiji?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't addressed on camera at all. It was something that came out after the show. But it was very weird for the show to start with 19 players, and it was it started with 19 players because it was 20, and somebody basically quit. They were, to my knowledge, they were on the boat ready to start the marooning, and before they even started filming, she just had a panic attack and decided to just quit and get out of there.
Yep.
But that's something they've dealt with before in terms of having to readjust and kind of play on their feet. So I don't know. It's hard. There's not really a good way for this to have been there's not a perfect way for this to have been dealt with or handled. So yeah, it sucks for Jackson. It sucks for Taku that they lose a member right off the bat through no fault of their own. It sucks that production has to kind of go through the awkwardness of dealing with this playing out. But yeah, like you said, it sucks all around. It's not a good situation. But I'm glad that the show is in all of their wisdom understood that it was not a good idea for him to be out there.
Yep. And that's that. That's the Jackson saga potentially coming to an end. But yeah, I honestly, he was up there for one of the players I was liking to picking early on. So I guess good for me. I didn't, but that stinks because I thought he was going to be a great player. Maybe he'll get another chance. I hope so.
Yeah, it's tricky because I don't think it's likely he gets another chance. I think that if he had been upfront, probably, and had to have bbeen cut because of it, like maybe there's a chance he gets another chance. So there was like a situation, for example, in San Juan del Sur, where there was a female team, So and Du Kim, who had to get cut basically at the last minute for that season, which is why that season starts with 18 players instead of 20 and an uneven number of women and men. And that was because Do Kim failed medical, but then So Kim was given a chance to be on the following season, season 30. So I think that something like that could have happened if Jackson were like upfront from the beginning, that, hey, I'm on lithium. I was hoping to be able to wean off of it before the show started. That's not going to be the case. I probably shouldn't play. Like maybe they're like, okay, well, we'll get you on 43. But I think because of the headache that this probably caused production, I don't know if I think they're probably gonna, project a lot of that headache onto him, not being upfront with them. So I don't know if they'll bring him back because of that, but we'll see. All right, I guess moving on here, the immunity challenge. Pretty like basic immunity challenge. Do a physical thing. In this case, a very physical thing, and then solve a puzzle. Yeah, and as we mentioned earlier, Jonathan just hard carries this for his team for the physical portion.
Yeah, I mean, no team really truly shined on the physical part. Everybody was kind of having a hard time.
Yeah.
So it does make it curious that eventually, if Jonathan does get eliminated, you're kind of just somebody has to become the alpha dog at that point. It's a matter of I wonder who. But there was some balance there between Taku having Jonathan and Vati and Ika, obviously. So maybe it's not as detrimental. It's not going to be as detrimental in the team challenge that it will be eventually when it gets to the individual, with Jonathan his size advantage over everyone.
Yeah, for sure. So we have it's basically a blowout. Like it's pretty clear that Ika is going to lose a challenge, like 60% of the way through it, I would say.
They just stopped moving. Yeah, they just couldn't move anymore.
Yeah, it was clear. Like as Drael mentioned later, like Roxroy in particular, kind of gives up and like runs out of gas. And like you can physically see that in the challenge. Is something that I noted even before it was brought up, that he was just kind of just laying there and just like taking extended breaks of pushing. And yeah, when your tribe has two men who are like 100-pound soaking wet each, it's kind of on the third man to be like the guy who's like carrying in a physical challenge like this. And when that man is like so physically exhausted that he's just totally tapped out and not even trying anymore, like the challenge is over. There's nothing you can do. So
I won't say anything bad about Roxroy. He gave it his all. He tried his best.
I guess. I mean, yeah, it's the tribe is like Ika is definitely by far like the physically weakest tribe. Like it's not
very unfortunate draw the sticks with Zach in terms of combined weight. I think they're maybe half of Jonathan. So that's tough.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't know if it'll matter too much because this challenge just seemed like overly physical compared to average. Like usually you're going to get kind of a more skill based or more balanced challenge, something like the first challenge, which Ika won. So I'm not too worried that they're like seemingly so outclassed from a physical perspective. But we'll see if it pays out. But something that is interesting here that gets brought up is Zach put some of the pressure on himself, or like the blame on himself afterwards, for him and Swathi not completing the puzzle fast enough, which I thought was odd, given that it seemed like the challenge was basically lost by the time they were able to start the puzzle.
I think maybe this is him, because either it was between two people. You know what I mean? It was between he could try to single out Roxroy like Dre did after, or
Mhm.
he can maybe take like the trustworthy, you're not so much a leader, but just the trustworthy teammate where he says, "Yeah, I messed up. Sorry, guys."
Yeah.
I agree. I think especially day one where you don't have those relationships yet. I think you gotta, yeah, it's dog eat dog out there. I was surprised more people weren't willing to go after him to begin with. Him being Zach, and so him like you said, singling himself out there just made matters worse. So I don't know. So a super fan, maybe not super strategist. They didn't say that.
Well, I think that less so the strategist perspective, and he talks about this in one of his confessionals, I think, where he says that he's the kind of person who like kind of overthinks situations or like over analyzes or like also kind of looks towards the worst possible case scenario. And so I think he almost kind of manifested his own boot in this episode by first of all taking self blame for the challenge loss when it pretty clearly wasn't really his fault. And then second, with the situation that we see with Tori, he projects a lot of his own beliefs about what Tori is going to do into reality, and basically also self snitches a little bit there, and is like, "Oh, Tori's throwing me under the bus, so let me throw myself under the bus first before she gets a chance to." And it's very not great.
It's funny you bring up the that he overthinks things because I saw today on Twitter that he wrote himself a letter
Yep.
for every possible
Yeah,
situation
I
that
saw that as well.
he would get eliminated. And yeah, he had his first one, so I guess that's true. Yeah, I mean I truly thought too, because I was saying it to myself was that I feel like it has to be one of the skinny guys, unfortunately, because
Mhm.
I don't think you can afford to go down in any more weight because you need at least for the next couple 3-4 days you're gonna need as much muscle as you can get. So uh, like I said, I thought it was gonna be Zach from the jump, but then unfortunately I also knew that there wasn't gonna be it wasn't gonna be a Tory anyways. So I think I might have been a little too Captain Hindsight with that, but it's tough because I was funny too. I was like going back and looking through his Reddit history because he's like he's the big redditor on Survivor, and it's like you see yourself tweet and then you see someone on your show and you think that you go on the show, just absolutely crush it, and it's just not always the case. Well, it's rarely the case. I feel like at this point, maybe overthinking does have to do with that, with thinking that you're such a super fan that you're just almost like it just wouldn't like it can't happen to you because you've seen it happen so many different times, and then just before you know it, you like say something stupid, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's like it's a combination of that, and I think it's a combination of just like having the personality type to panic, I guess. I don't know if
Mhm.
panic is a correct word, but he definitely felt like he was making a lot of impulsive decisions without really like thinking through every possibility of how things could play out, or like acknowledging that his assumptions might be incorrect in certain instances. And yeah, I think that maybe it's like a level of just like lack of confidence, maybe, or just like a level of I'm not sure. I don't know. It's very interesting case. For like we usually don't see like kind of a first boot from this in like this perspective, or like a first boot like this, somebody
Mhm.
that's booted first for this reason. Um, like usually it's more cut and dried. Whereas with him, I think he didn't really make like a single big mistake, but just like kind of a smattering of small mistakes that built up into kind of a whirlwind that he lost control of, maybe.
Mhm. Yeah, because I also I think too that, and it's so funny because I'm talking about how strong of a player that I think that Dre is, but this moment is pretty much where I think that she it does did her worst move of the whole night,
Mhm.
which was out of nowhere, just immediately blowing up her alliance with Romeo and Roxroy, saying she wants to get Roxroy out.
Hmm.
and that he was a soft competitor in the physical challenge. I think that was a crazy move on her half, because I thought she was really a really smart player up until that point. Um, because like you said, when you have someone who's already having the finger pointed at them, and then you start to inflict some self harm, I really thought that was that, because I think Romeo said it in his confessional too, like that's like a very untrustworthy move.
Yeah.
And I could maybe be putting words in Romeo's mouth, but I feel like that he's basically said something along those lines. Um, so very that's like another interesting dynamic like to look at there. I think Dre is just very cutthroat, which it could be live fast, die fast, or it could be she just slits her throats all the way up to the top. So like on one side, it makes me think that Drea is not as great as players I think, but also I'm more intrigued with her because I think that maybe she has a little bit of a maybe not a villain, but she's someone that is just going to cut everyone's throats. Um, and I think that sometimes makes her a really good player. Love
Yeah. No.
Coach. Shout out
For sure.
Coach.
For sure. For sure. No. I mean, if we're like doing like kind of a quick comparison, like I'm already kind of getting like Shan vibes in terms of just like she's somebody who's playing hard right off of the bat, collecting all of these advantages, trying to take social control of her tribe, but doing it in like kind of a messy way. But it's like it's messy, but it doesn't matter yet that it's messy. But it's like there's like pieces there where it's like, oh, this might be a mistake, but maybe it won't actually play out into the mistake mattering. Like that's kind of what I'm getting for the vibes so far. But we'll see if that's like a good comparison or not. I'm curious, I guess. What are your thoughts here? We touched on Tori a little bit earlier in terms of our predictions for her. But what were your thoughts on how she handled the knowledge that idle rumors about her were circulating?
I feel like most of the time this always gets improperly played is when but I imagine also the panic of having it be like your second
Yeah.
day and hearing this, like everything goes out the window, and you like I'd be panicking too, because
Mhm.
something like you said, something as stupid as just walking off and not really and as she says, playing and not realizing that it would make it look like that she was looking for an idol, when obviously she was. It was a panic move that I can also just see myself making. So it's like I said, we know it kind of pays off for her in the end, but I don't know. I think if this was like day like 10, I'd feel a little differently. Then I can see like the very first tribal, like you're freaking out because you don't want to be the first one. I'd rather be the second one than the first one. And I'm gonna go home for something stupid like that. I think you do whatever's possible. So I think it was fine, but it does build up her villain arc.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I thought she handled this okay.
Mhm.
Actually, I thought that trying to open it up to everybody, which was like sort of throwing Zach under the bus, but not directly throwing him under the bus by like she didn't say, "Oh, Zach told me that there's rumors that there's an idol." She said, "I have heard that there is rumors that there is an idol," and she just kind of let it sit there. And then to pull Drea specifically aside into a side conversation, and then talk to her about strategy outside of the thing with the idol to try to rebuild some trust there that was broken. I thought that was actually pretty good because usually what happens with this is people will get incredibly defensive, even if they're telling the truth, to the point where it just kind of reaffirms people's suspicions, even if it's not correct. But the way that Tori plays this is more so using it as a springboard to try to casually push the target onto somebody else, which ends up being Zach, and then use it as a way to build a relationship with somebody that she didn't really have a relationship with before, Andrea. And it ends up, in my opinion, working out because Drea, as you mentioned, starts talking about targeting Roxroy, which may or may not be a mistake, depending on how it plays out going forward. And then she also gets Drea on her side in terms of like being a voice to get people to target Zach eventually. And obviously, she's fortunate that Swati and Roxroy also seem like they prefer to target Zach over her. And presumably Romeo just gets outvoted 3-1 when these four are making their decision. But yeah, I thought it was good. I thought she took a bad situation and made it into like an okay situation. Not a good situation, but an okay situation.
I did love Roxroy when Romeo tried to get him to vote for Tory. Roxroy immediately was like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that."
yeah. Yeah, I think it's smart. I think that they're probably thinking about challenge strength, and they see Tori as like probably one of the stronger women, and they see Zach as probably one of the weakest men in the cast, if not the weakest man in the cast. So yeah, understandable, and I think also like there is some level of like, is it worse to potentially look for an idol or to be the person who rats out the open conversation that everybody is doing to the person looking for an idol to make themselves look like the good guy? Uh, like there's almost a level to like what Zach did as being like even snakier than what Tori did from a tribe perspective.
Yep.
So yeah, oh, I thought it was interesting. I really like the Ika tribe. I think their dynamics are very, very interesting.
I really like I said, I agree. I like every tribe. It's tough with Taku because really after Jackson, everything
Yep.
like we don't see them again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like I said, I feel like I barely got to know Omar, Lindsay, and is it Maria?
Mariah.
Mariah. Um, but hopefully they'll get more because that's the other thing. I think we heard Jonathan talk. Wait, what? Twice? I can't even think if I can even think of what he sounds like in my head. So hopefully we get more time with that track. But I agree. Vati and Ika, I like a lot.
All right.
It's not as much as like last season too with the chaos of I've repressed the tribe names from my head of the yellow tribe like
Yeah,
stinking
yeah,
and
yeah,
just
yeah.
blue tribe dominating. It's nice to have these dynamics.
Yeah, yeah.
It's refreshing.
Right. And if there is going to be like a kind of a chaotic tribe, it seems like it's going to be Ika probably so far. But that's just because we've seen the most of them. So maybe the other tribes will be chaotic as well, and it just hasn't manifested itself yet because they haven't had to be chaotic.
We did forget to mention Marianne shouting like she just lost her son in the Great War. That was people. I actually liked how wacky she was. I thought it's a nice like crazy character just to bring in that you can
Mhm.
just sometimes just appreciate how absurd that they are. But that one actually got a good and unfortunately got a good laugh out of me at a very serious time when I heard her yell like that. Um, so shout out Marianne. I'm hoping that she's not too crazy for her own good because I'm hoping she sticks around for a long time.
Yeah, I'm like I'm not bought in on Marianne yet. I know a lot of people are, and that's probably going to be a controversial opinion. But she's kind of too much for me from an energy perspective. I can only kind of handle too much, like so much energy. But there is definitely like a high probability that she grows on me as the season wears on, for sure. But yeah, I think we should move on here to the tribal council. Unless you have anything else to say before that.
Nope. Let's go tribal.
Yeah. So the primary thing that I remember from the tribal council was basically Zach trying to call Tori out for throwing her under the bus, basically, and saying that afterwards Tori went to Drea and threw me under the bus, and then Tori sarcastically saying, "That's funny. I don't remember that happening." Because from what we saw, Tori is actually telling the truth, and this didn't happen. The conversation he had with Drea had nothing to do with Zach or the idol.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's what Zach would assume that she did, especially with him being a target after.
Luckily, it leads into a smart decision made by Zach. But
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, Tori had him when you saw. I forget what the exact point that Tori made, but she did that, and everybody was like, "Oh no." And that's what I knew between the meta of knowing she has the she's gonna get an idol, and then knowing that I knew Zach was gone there.
Mhm.
So into really the only in my opinion other noteworthy moment of this tribal is finally someone played the dice because we saw Sydney do it unnecessarily last season. Someone
Mhm.
played the dice and they played it at the right time, the time that you're supposed to play it when you think your back's against the wall. And he knew it going into it. He was going to play the dice. So I was really glad to see that, even though it didn't work out for him. I was glad to see someone play it correctly, and I mean, if that saved him there, that would have been insane. We just knew it didn't, but if it would have saved him, that does make for great TV. So I hope we actually do get a situation where we don't know who is going to make it out of this vote, and we get that because it is, if it's played correctly, it's exciting. Because I even think last season too. Last season, I feel like we knew that Sydney wasn't as in the position that she herself thought she was in. Um, so it's like I said, it's just nice to see it played correctly. I just hope we get like that ooh ah moment with it, and I don't want to wait a whole nother season to get that.
Yeah, the I think it'll probably happen this season. If it doesn't happen this season, they should probably just scrap the twist. They probably should have scrapped the twist before the season, but I think they really want that moment, and they're going to try as hard as they can to get it. But yeah, this is only the second time it's used. 2 for 2 in terms of it not giving a safe parchment, but definitely the first time we have somebody in the pre-merge correctly read that they're the target and be like, oh, I should do the thing that lets me not get voted out potentially instead of nothing.
Refresh memory. I think the further it goes into the season, doesn't eventually like another vote get added in, like another safe get added into. So potentially, hypothetically, if you had two people roll, two people could potentially get um uh the immunity for the tribe.
It's unclear because of the way the mechanics work. It's very unclear
It's just like
if
last year. We're going into it again. The conversation continues.
yeah. So they say it's a 1 in 6. We don't know if that means that there's 6 pieces of parchment in the bag and one of them says safe, or if there's like 60 pieces of parchment in the bag and 10 of them say they're safe. So maybe it doesn't matter. Like if there is like a bunch of parchment in there and there's multiple safe ones and it's just that it's a 1 in 6, then that's not really something we have to care about or discuss. Presumably, it should be that. Like, there should be basically always more parchment in the bag than players at the tribal council.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that be 6 now and then like 12 at a merge or something like that. But yeah, I think that there probably is a way for multiple people to play it and multiple people to be safe, but that's like very rare, obviously. Like, you have to have 2 people at a tribal council play it and then basically hit a 1 in 36. So you have to have a scenario that's rare and then have a rare probability occur off of that scenario. So I don't think it's ever something we really have to worry about. But who knows? Weirder things have happened on Survivor before.
Just gotta keep it in until that happens.
Well, to keep it in before it happens, before one person gets saved by it. Never mind 2. So yeah, definitely smart by Zach. I'm curious here if you thought about whether or not they should have split the votes here, and in the presumption that he was going to play a shot in the dark.
That's a good point, but I also I it's tough because you I think I think you just go against because if you I guess if you do split it, yeah, it will go back to Tori. I think at that point you're just thinking they probably weren't even thinking because I guess that wasn't even something
Yeah.
that even considered until you brought it up too. I think it's just such a long shot to get the role. I just don't. I do wonder if that will play effect in future votes too, because it's not an immunity idol, yeah, but I guess like it's the same thing as thinking someone could have an immunity idol. You're not
Yep.
sure, so that's a good point that I actually didn't even really consider is that they should have split the vote. So in hindsight, yeah, I guess that would have made a lot of sense, and I guess that yeah, they should have thought of that. So that is something to pick out.
Yeah, no, I think that it does create. We talked about this last season. The Shot in the Dark creates a situation where, like, even if it never pans out that somebody saves himself with it, its mere existence incentivizes blindsides in the same way that idols do, but to an even greater degree, because it's essentially like a soft version of like the meme that people have talked about of like, oh, everybody has an idol, but like everyone does have kind of an idol, like a bad idol that doesn't work most of the time. And so, yes, Zach has to give his vote up, but if Tori thinks about it and is like, well, if he uses a shot in the dark and it works and everybody voted for him, there's no votes, so we'll probably re-vote, and then the four of them will probably just vote me out. Maybe it's in my best interest to like throw a vote on Romeo, and if the four of them are like, hey, maybe Tori will proactively throw a vote on one of us in the outcome of Zach getting his shot in the dark success. We should probably have one of us throw a vote on Tori just so we can go to a revote in that instance. Obviously, one, Tori didn't do that, so it didn't end up mattering. And two, Zach ended up not getting his shot in the dark, so it didn't end up mattering from that perspective either. So there were like two conditions that had to meet for it to matter whether they split the votes or not, and neither of them were met. So it's like, I don't know, it's tricky. Because you're basically balancing the odds of the shot in the dark working versus like the social hit that you take from throwing a vote on somebody that's going to probably still be in the game.
Because it's not as threatening as if someone's playing a fake idol, or if you think someone's playing a fake idol. Because at that point, it's either it is or it's not. But this one, at least, it's like a 1 in 6 chance.
Yeah.
That you're wrong. That's a risk I'm willing to take. So
yeah.
But obviously, the less people it becomes, the more more complicated I think it gets too. When you get in the end game. Because at that point, then that's not really a risk you're willing to take. And I think that's when you can start seeing splits and alliances too, because that is scary. That's basically a 1 in 6. You're out. So that's horrifying too.
Yeah. No, I think in this case it's not that big of a deal, because if you're one of these random four, if you're one of the other four people that's not Tori, you have to have the 1 in 6 happen on the shot in the dark. You have to have basically like a 1 in 4 that you would be the one that Tori would put the vote on if she were to do that. And then you have to have whatever percentage it is that Tori makes that proactive, very defensive play of putting a vote on somebody to try to protect herself from the shot in the dark. So that's already like a 1 in 50 that it's going to bounce back on you and something's going to go horribly wrong. It's probably not worth it at that point to like mess up your socially and potentially for that small of odds, but maybe not. I don't know. It's definitely interesting.
That was our little math segment that we've.
Yeah. Well,
so there you go.
This is the spreadsheet RP we talked about in terms of like having so many twists.
Survivor math. It's a new segment we're gonna have each week.
Yep. And that's pretty much it. Zach says his like goodbye messages. He's like, hey, at least I'm a statistic, right? This is the first time there's been a Penn Department vote where I was voted out unanimously. And then yeah, you can follow the channel on Twitter as Dylan mentioned at WG Everything, the main channel. You can also follow the main channel on Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, and Instagram at Wicked Good Everything. Obviously on YouTube as well at Wicked Good Everything for the main channel content. You can follow the podcast channel on YouTube at Better Radio, and this particular podcast, which is The Blindsiders, is available also on every major podcasting platform. Otherwise, we'll be back next week, hopefully with Brian feeling good as well to come back onto the show to talk about episode 2 of Survivor 42. Until then, been Dylan and Ben here talking about Survivor.